How's it going, Great A Nation? Chris Thomas here. Hope you're having a great A kind of day. And my guest on this installment of Great A Nation is Sophia V. Sophia is the host of Vocal Minds with Sophia, a podcast available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It features audio from her live podcast hosted on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sophia. Also, check out her content at youtube.com/vocalminds. That's VOCALMINDS. Instagram.com/vocalmindsophia. And twitter.com/vocalmindsophia. Sophia, how are you doing?
I'm I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm very excited to chat with you. And you've talked to a wide variety of people. I mean, from someone that believes they're a spirit medium to a viral star on TikTok. So, what do you look for in a guest, and which guest has received the most listener interest?
So what I tend to look for is somebody with a really interesting career or experience. Um, but once I've ticked that off, I'm not going to go back and bring somebody like that. Do you know what I mean? So like with the TikTok star, I've done a TikTok star. Now there is many TikTok stars, but I can't keep on sharing the same similar backgrounds. So I tend to look for people with really interesting experiences. But as I keep ticking off these lists, it gets harder to find people because then a lot of people have similar stories. Do you know what I mean? So I've had a journalist who was kidnapped by the Taliban. I've had a tech giant who had an encounter with an alien, right? So once you start ticking off these extreme stories, I mean, there's nothing really left to cover. So it's trying to find a balance between that and then, careers. I had Sean B. Bradley come on. He was like the biggest ecstasy dealer in New York at the age of 17 or 18. He used to like import ecstasy into the United States. He was on the Vice show. I Was a Teenage Felon. So I tried to find people with really outrageous, interesting stories that I think my audience will resonate with.
Oh, wow. That's the second guest in a row that's used the word resonate, and that's one of my favorite words to use. So I think there's some synchronicity going on. What do you feel is the value added from doing the podcast live with video as opposed to audio only?
So because initially I'm a Twitch streamer, that's what I have been doing. And so then I decided to start a podcast. And I like, because my main audience is on Twitch. And so I started doing it on Twitch before I even got onto the podcast. Before I actually had a podcast, I would have guests come onto Twitch to speak with me, like from all walks of life, And I would say that was kind of like my learning experience, although I didn't realize at the time. I was bringing on, it was almost like practicing to be a podcaster or, a host. And so, and then I've been doing it for a while, like 5 months, bringing guests on to speak from all walks of life. And so I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast. So I, looked into that and started the podcast. To be honest, it is more challenging with the audio when you do it on a live stream because the audio will never be the same as probably when you're just recording, because then you can really edit it. When it's live, there's a lot of interference. And it's harder, but if I don't do that, then my Twitch audience, which is my main platform, don't get it. And yeah, so they're like who I cater to first, and then doing the podcast, I'm reaching new people, but my main audience is on Twitch.
And what made you initially interested in starting on Twitch? What aspects about your life experiences inspired you to do content creation work on Twitch?
So I would say I actually started Twitch streaming I think it's 11, wait, no, 1 year and 1 month. And why did I start it? Well, it was during lockdown, like everyone. There was nothing to do, right? And so I started it, but I didn't take it serious. I just started, I would go on and I would just, people would come into my room. And then I started having conversations, and I love conversations about various things like aliens and, politics and religion and medicine and spirituality and you name it, everything under the sun really. And I was really inspired by these conversations. And then I always come across interesting people. And what really actually inspired me to start my podcast is Dr. Yvonne Ridley. She is a journalist from the UK, and she was kidnapped by the Taliban. And there's a film about her with Keira Knightley. It's called Official Secrets. She was a journalist that exposed US and UK for spying on the United Nations to place sanctions on Iraq. Now, when I discovered her, I wanted to speak to her. I was like, wow, this woman is like unbelievable. I really admire her. She got kidnapped by the Taliban, but she ended up converting to Islam because they said to her, we will let you go if you read the Quran, which is their holy scriptures. And she ends up reading it and she ends up converting to Islam. And now she's an advocate for Islam. And I was like, wow, how can I ever speak to her? And so I was like, I'm going to do a podcast so I can speak to her and I'll invite her. And she was my second guest. And at the time I had no leverage. You know what I mean? I was completely new to podcasting. I had never spoke to anyone of her caliber. And she's a journalist. Her job is to interview. She's like one of the most renowned journalists in the UK. And so I'm like this amateur and she's like, somebody I aspire to. And she agreed and it was unbelievable that she came on, and I still can't believe it. Even now, I'm like blown away. The fact that I actually got to speak to her on my podcast. She's like somebody I really admire. So she definitely inspired me to start my podcast journey. And I come across, people who inspire me, and I want to know their story. I want to know the rundown or the truth behind it. And then I think, well, many other people might want to know. So let me share it.
Was there an element of nervousness doing the interview and other interviews compared to just chatting with people on Twitch?
100%. So when I first started, like, it was so difficult for me because I have no experience. And when you're live, so I planned my questions and I would have the guest in front of me. And it's not like when you're recording, like where you could be doing anything and they can't really see you. The person, your guest, is watching you. Like it's like they're practically sitting opposite you. And sometimes they look at you and you feel like you're being interrogated. And I had struggled, honestly, I'm not gonna lie with you to you. It's like imposter syndrome, yeah. So I couldn't believe like I'm speaking to like J-Lo's creative director or like, and I would lose focus on the conversation because I was so nervous. And I'm getting better at that. And sometimes it was really unbearable. I remember when I had Sean V. Bradley on, and he's like this multi-millionaire now, like really, uh, killing it in his field. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God. Like I was freaking out while he was my guest and I couldn't focus really. And I was just freaking out. But publicly, people will have no idea. But I was freaking out. But I'm getting better at it. To be honest, I'm getting better. And my future guests that are coming on, that I have, coming on my podcast are really and really amazing people that I admire, and I'm still gonna be nervous then, and I don't know how to overcome these nerves. But I listen to Beyonce, and I listen to the music that makes you feel confident and like you're a boss lady, and then just go on there and try to and do as best as I can. I do feel like I'm getting better because I've only done 10 episodes, but I've had a really, amazing guest. And Yeah, I feel like I'm getting better, honestly. Like my last guest was a former Secret Service agent, and I wasn't nervous speaking to him, which is weird because I'm sure he completely searched my entire existence because it's easy for him. But I wasn't because I feel like I'm getting better. And so, yeah.
Now, one of the challenging dynamics of doing a live podcast on Twitch is that there's essentially two conversations going on. There's the conversation with the guest, and then there's all the people in the chat. How do you avoid getting distracted by people chiming in the chat with potential questions and things like that?
So I try to not read the chat dialogue. I know that they'll be conversating with themselves. I will like scan through it every now and then, and if you can see my recaps, you'll see my eyes like people who can't see the chat and they're just watching the video recap. They'll be like, why is she not looking at the camera? Like she's unprofessional because her eyes keep on wandering. But I always have to keep an eye out on the chat. I don't go into dialogue with chat unless the guest is happy to do a little AMA, ask me anything, or a Q&A. But generally I don't really do questions from chat. Yeah.
Do you feel that moving forward, it will always be Twitch because your primary audience is on Twitch? Because with an interview, you, like you say, you do want to be respectful of the guest, be mindful of the guest, and be engaged with what they're saying. So, do you think maybe another platform might be a better avenue in which to have conversations?
I have considered it, and everyone I've spoke to who is a podcaster is like, just live record it, like record it, don't do it on Twitch. But that's my main avenue. You know what I mean? If I start doing it elsewhere, my Twitch audience will be very upset. And they like the dynamic of me bringing someone on every Monday because I live record it every Monday. And so it's like every Monday they're like, who's the next guest, And it's now a thing, right? So going forward, I'm not really sure how it will end up. Like, I'm still growing on the podcast space, but I have my foot on in Twitch. I've got like a decent sized following on there. But I don't know, going forward, I have no idea. I don't actually, I'm still new to complete, I've only done 10 episodes. I went into it without no knowledge at all. I just thought I'm a Twitch streamer, so I can do this. And then I learned the hard way that it's not as easy as it looks. Like I would choke up and not be able to speak with my guests because I'm like so nervous. And they don't know and they have no idea. Like in my heart, I'm like dying. I just want to run away, and just end the call.
Yeah. Now, you've had on an astrologer. Do you find astrological horoscopes useful in your own life?
Personally, I do not. I think it is something that is a construct by people that, because, and the only reason I said that is because I know that there are individuals who say that they can read read people's stars, and I don't know if that's true. I can't verify that. But I used to have a friend who was a graphics designer for a horoscope company, and they would just rotate the message every month because you only read your one, right? So there's 12, and they would just rotate them annually because no one reads a horoscope that isn't theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know you have an interest in the paranormal. What experiences, if any, have you or friends, family had with ghosts?
Unfortunately, I've had no experiences with ghosts. But if I did, I think I would, pass out because I'm actually terrified of the idea that ghosts do exist because it's not like something you can run away from. like hide, close your, they can go through doors, you know what I mean? It's just like, where are you gonna hide? You can't. So I don't even want to comprehend the idea of it because I'm terrified. Um, and I find it really amusing and interesting, you know, to be surrounded by people who are ghost hunters and people who work in that industry. And I watch ghost hunting videos on YouTube, and it's really fascinating. But myself, I have never had any encounters of any extraterrestrials, ghosts, and I don't know, maybe they don't like me. I'm like, what is it about me? You know, I was really active in the UFO community, and like, no, not was like, I'm active in the UFO community. I know people who work in that space and they've all had encounters, and I've never seen anything, and I'm quite jealous because I'm like, why they don't like, why, you know, why can't I see them? I do believe in extraterrestrials. Well, I think that it would be ridiculous to believe that the only form of life would be on Earth in this entire universe. What they are or who they are is not my knowledge, but I would like to think that there is something outside of Earth. And if there isn't, how dull and mundane would that be? Like, we are the only life on Earth and there's all that space out there.
Yeah, it does get you thinking because of the size of the universe, of all the living beings out there. Can we possibly be the sole form of life that's human like? Uh, it's kind of questionable. Questionable. But I mean, the interesting thing is that you said that you would be afraid if you encountered a ghost, but you do watch, the content, and you are interested in aliens. If you encountered an alien, I'm sure you would be terrified. So, what is it about things that you're afraid of that you're drawn to? Because it sounds like you do have a little bit of fear of interviewing people. You had mentioned imposter syndrome, but you do it. Is there a high you get from doing things that you're afraid of?
Must be, honestly, it must be. Or I just think, yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Like, what else am I gonna do? Just sit and play PlayStation, you know? Um, I can't relax. I'm a really agitated person. So I want challenges. I love challenges, you know? And so that's like something that I have always done since childhood, like put myself in the most craziest situations. But I love learning as well, learning and speaking to people that I have no knowledge about what they're doing. You know what I mean? And so I'm like very curious person. Like, I want to know everything and every type of a human being that is out there in the world.
You have an inquisitive mind.
Yeah, basically.
What was it like interviewing the hypnotist Michael Mesmer? I mean, I don't want to be mean spirited, but when I came across the interview, I, I would be distracted by his hair because he kind of had that Mo Howard from Three Stooges bowl haircut. What was that like interviewing the hypnotist Michael Mesmer?
So I think personally his look actually adds to his character, because if he didn't look like that, maybe people would think he was just a regular guy, right? But when you look at him, you can tell this guy is, you know, very unique and he has something. He was really friendly. I really enjoyed speaking to him. Um, because he was just really easy to engage with, and also because he's a wrestling fan. So, you know, it was like we could talk about wrestling and then go into his work as a hypnotist. Like, he's performed for the likes of Michael Jackson and the late Michael Jackson, late Grace Kelly and Liz Taylor, like some of the most elite people in America and world in the world, you know, presidents and prime ministers. And I think it's really interesting what he does as well. Like, he does magic and swallows hundreds of razor blades. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I watch wrestling and I see people bleeding, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't watch this. And this is his job. Like, he does danger magic, which is, I think there's only a few people that do that. People like David Blaine, and there's another guy, and I can't remember what his name is. I think Dynamo, something like that. It might be Dynamo. I could be wrong. Dynamo's from England, from Bristol, I think. Yeah.
Now, what has been the response of friends and family to your success on Twitch?
So everyone's pretty happy, they're supportive and they really like what I'm doing with the podcast, especially. And just really like looking forward to seeing what's gonna go down in the future and the more guests I have. And, my setup is going to improve once I, perfect my craft because I'm still learning. I've only done 10 episodes. And I just went straight in without no experience. And, I've learned everything. I'm learning as I'm going.
And on Twitch, you also do what is known as sidecasting. Can you tell people what sidecasting is and how one would go about doing it?
So, sidecasting is when you watch something, but you can't show it on TV. I mean, sorry, you can't show it on your stream because the TV channel is something to do with their copyright, right? And
Yeah,
they don't want.
you'll have a takedown
Yeah, yeah.
notice.
So I'm not exactly sure the proper analytics to why it's not allowed on. But so I'm a huge fan of wrestling. And when I mean professional wrestling like WWE and AEW. And so I watch that on my television, which is behind my laptop. And then I sit in front and then I give my takes and, my opinions on what is going on in the matches, with the promos, with wrestling in general.
And how long have you been a follower and fan of professional wrestling?
So I've loved wrestling since 100 years. No, I'm joking. For a very long time, but I stopped. I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually stopped watching wrestling for a long time, and then I recently, about a year and a half, got back into it. Um, but I would watch wrestling not on Twitch on my free time, and it's quite late for me. You've got to understand, like, I'm not in America, so I would have to stay up till 3, 4 a.m. to watch wrestling. And so honestly, I would only do pay-per-views, which is once every month, every other month, because that would be the big event and worth staying up for. Um, and then the first sidecast I did, I think it was Crown Jewel, which was not bad, to be honest, because it was in Saudi Arabia. So it was like 7 p.m. for me.
Yeah.
The time was not bad. That's probably my favorite pay-per-view. Only just because of the time. So I would sidecast pay-per-views because everyone's so excited. It's like the big event. And then I see the response and everyone is so excited and then it became a thing. And then I was like, well, so I wake up quite early. I'm an early person, but if I sleep really late, I can't wake up. And during Monday to Friday, which most of the wrestling is on, except for pay-per-views tend to be on the weekends, I'm not staying up till 4 in the morning. So I can do SmackDown and Rampage, which is on Friday, because I don't have to wake up early on Saturday. So I can stay up all night and watch wrestling, and that's fine. Monday night Raw, I will watch the first hour, but I won't watch it on Twitch until I fall asleep around 2:30 a.m. And then same with Dynamite, I could watch it, but not on Twitch because it's quite late for me. And just, it's tough staying up. And NXT as well. I forgot to mention NXT on Tuesday. Like, there's so much wrestling. If you're a wrestling fan right now, there's so much wrestling. Monday, Raw, Tuesday, NXT, Wednesday, Dynamite, Thursday, if you like NXT UK, Friday night, SmackDown and Rampage. You know what I mean? 5 days a week of wrestling. Like, how much hours of wrestling can one consume? I love wrestling. I'm not complaining. But I pick and choose what I want to watch, you know? And I'll be honest with you, I prefer the WWE promotion to AEW. And I haven't figured out why. I'm trying to figure out why. And I think maybe because there's more lights and more pyro, and it's like, you know, you feel the presence, whereas AEW is more like dark and dingy, and you know, I don't know. I mean, my favorite matches last year, especially were like in 2022. So I have to say, last year were on AEW. They have some unbelievable matches and talent, but I'm just, you know, I think
The storytelling's not there.
yeah, I think that's what it is.
In following both WWE and AEW, these are the two major brands in the US. Have you encountered any difficulty with the online bickering that takes place between the fans of the two products? There's the WWE side and the AEW side, and they seem to be at war with each other, trolling
Yeah.
each other. Have you
I think it,
encountered that in your streams and in your interactions on social media?
yeah. So obviously, because I love WWE, and I always, when I refer to Vince, I say Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So like, people are like, "Oh my God, you're literally being paid by Vince," because I give that. I never say anything bad about WWE or like Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and so people think that, like, you know, I'm like shilling for them. I have, to be honest, I haven't personally encountered, because I think people just appreciate my takes. I have seen there is a big war between WWE and AEW fans, and it's quite amusing to watch from the sidelines, I must say. But I feel like AEW fans are pretty, you know, they go hard. They're very extreme.
Oh yeah, it borders on a cult.
100%. I think they want to be like ECW. Um, the ECW fans are pretty intense.
Now, as a Twitch streamer and a female pro wrestling fan, I'm sure you've encountered some misogyny along the way. So, how do you overcome that, and what tips might you have for girls and women wanting to potentially explore being a Twitch streamer or a female wrestling commentator online?
I think the only way is to block it out. That's the only way. That's my own. I've dealt with misogyny from way back, from my whole life. You know what I mean? Especially because I would like to think I'm quite intelligent, right? But I'm very like curvy and like, you know, I have a very full woman's figure. And so people don't want to listen to what I have to say. They would rather just be like, oh, yeah, this is what you look like, and this is it. And they, you know, they just see the external part of me. And so it's something that I've dealt with my entire life, where people have just judged me based on what I look like. But, you know, you got to kick down the doors and make sure you're heard. And even with wrestling, initially people thought I was just, you know, doing it like to get views, and they thought I was just a gimmick. But I think when you're consistent and you show up all the time, then, you know, people start to realize you're actually the real deal. And maybe that's why I'm able to get good guests, you know, these like academics, because they don't see me as some like gimmick or a meme. Because I'm like, you know, don't judge me based on my external. Like, if I want to not dress modest, and doesn't mean I'm not intelligent, you know. But so I would say, with the, if you do receive hate, just block it out. There's no other way to do it. Pretend it doesn't exist. There's, if you engage with it, they won't stop, right? So you just have to continue and block it out. And if you do Twitch, get good moderators who can just filter your conversations. Anyone who's being horrible or misogynistic or, you know, sexualizing you, to delete those messages.
And I think that it's so pervasive with all sorts of content creators online that are female. It just seems like there's this dismissiveness and this judgment of physical appearance and not the substance. And you definitely have a lot to say. So it's unfortunate that we have this culture where women are marginalized in that way. It's very
I know, I agree with you, and I hope one day we move away from that. But I don't think it's just on the internet. I think it is how society is indoctrinated, you know. Um, and slowly we are seeing women who have really high sex appeal, who are killing it in corporate worlds, and you know, in demographics that have nothing to do with sexualizing yourself. Like we're moving away from that, but we're not there yet. There's only a few women to break past that barrier, but more, of course, as and you know, you've got to understand, women, we've only been able to be outspoken for like what, 50 years, 60 years. You know, it's still new for us to have this this. So yeah, I hope in the future, you know, women will have more of the right to sit on the same table. And to me, that's always been my goal, to be honest, because I always wanted to earn my place on the table, not be there as the pretty girl, you know, from when I was younger. Um, it doesn't matter if you're a politician or whatever you do. Like, I'm not sat here because I'm pretty. I'm sat here because I have a brain and I can talk and I have ideas and my own opinions, you know? And so, and I, you know, like I read a lot. I have a lot of knowledge about various topics. And just because maybe you saw me wearing a little dress, you can't say that, oh, now because I wore a little dress, I am not intelligent. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think overall, like, I've been able to separate that because eventually people see that you're not just here wearing a dress and that's all you want. You're like wearing a dress and saying, hey, look at me. No, you actually have something to say, you know?
definitely. Now, let's say you were to rise to the top of the corporate ladder in the wrestling domain. If you were to start a wrestling company today, which five wrestlers currently working would you hire and why?
Five is a very less number.
Yeah,
Okay, so
just like the base, the five that you
okay,
absolutely must have.
okay, Young Bucks as a tag team. That would be if I had one tag team, right? So my tag team would be Young Bucks. I think they're amazing. I actually feel like Lucha Bros are better wrestlers, but they're sassy. You know what I mean? They like to provoke thought. So I would say Young Bucks as my tag team. My female would be Sasha Banks. She's
Excellent
not my
choice.
favorite female wrestler, but I love her confidence. She is so confident. I don't know if you've ever heard her speak. You should watch her on Broken Skull. She is so confident, or that's what she's portraying, and it's amazing to watch. So Sasha would be my female. My male would be hmm, Brock Lesnar. My male would be Brock Lesnar. Hell yeah. And then Paul Heyman.
Well, he's not a wrestler.
I
he,
know, but he could be
he's
the,
a
you know, the manager.
personality.
He would be, oh mate, I actually love Paul Bearer. He's my most favorite character in all professional wrestling. So if I could bring one person back, it would definitely be him. Or Dusty Rhodes, man. He's iconic.
So you definitely are more in line with the promo people who are strong at the promos. Because Paul Bearer, great promo. Dusty Rhodes, great promo. Paul Heyman, fantastic promo.
Yeah. No, I guess so, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I want a show. You know what I mean? I want to be entertained. I do like wrestling, don't get me wrong. But if I just want to watch wrestling, like even people say there's so many promotions, what separates WWE is the characters, right?
Now, which three or four matches have been the most memorable for you to watch?
Of all time.
Yeah, like your Mount Rushmore of wrestling matches.
Okay, so Kane and Undertaker when with the pallbearer um being Kane's Kane's dad. I love that. I can watch that video 10 million times and still get so excited. I get so excited when I see Taker with Paul Bearer. You know what I mean? Even Kane, I don't really like Kane to be honest.
You have
But
an action figure of Kane in your kitchen.
I do, I have an action figure. Um,
You also have the Undertaker buddy.
I do, I have Undertaker, I have two. Um, so that I like what other match? So many. You know when Jeff Hardy jumped from 30 feet and did the Swanton bomb. That was pretty iconic. Mick Foley is also one of my most favorite. So Mick Foley was Stone Cold and The Rock. That was iconic. Um, Mick Foley. There's so many Mick Foley ones that really stand out. Uh, I don't know. I would say also, do you know I'm gonna put Sasha and Bianca for WrestleMania one last year because that was really good for women in wrestling and like mainstream wrestling. That was pretty, iconic.
Now, it sounds like you're a big fan of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, I am. I do like current wrestling though. I'm not one of these people that are like, oh, I hate what WWE is now and I want the Attitude Era to come back. I'm a huge fan of the Attitude Era. I'm a huge fan of today. I would prefer the storylines of the Attitude Era just because they are a bit more offensive. And I understand TV is not what it once was. There is a lot of laws now. You can't offend, you know what I mean? You can't do this, you can't do that. There's so many laws. I do love I do love the Attitude Era, but I do love what's going on right now with wrestling too.
So, what are your thoughts on Vince Russo? Because he was the primary writer of WWE during that period, and he gets a lot of flack from wrestling fans for moving away from the wrestling component and having a big focus on the characters, the promos, shock factor. What are your thoughts on his work? Do you think he gets a unfair rap?
I don't think it's unfair. I think what people's like, there's various types of fans, and there's people who just want wrestling and they don't want no talking and they don't want no promos and they just want to see two people in the ring. Like, and I believe that there's promotions out there. I heard I've never watched it, but I've heard MLW is really good for just wrestling. Um, and some promotions in Japan, and I wouldn't even know how to access them, to be honest. Um, and if that's what you want to watch, there is promotions out there for that. The storylines and the promos, that's what really touches people's hearts, right? And so I'm more of the storylines and the promos and the gimmicks. Undertaker is my number one like Jesus of wrestling. And that is because of the character of the Undertaker. If it was just Mark Calloway, I don't know if I'd be so inclined to make him like my Jesus.
Yeah, because he would be just another guy. But
Exactly.
when you're the Undertaker, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes with that. A whole bunch of character based elements that are interesting.
I
That that
know.
that makes you want to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so I prefer that. I prefer that aspect to it. I can understand for wrestling fans who just want to see wrestling. And for wrestling fans who miss like the bloodshed, I'm not a fan of blood. I'm very one of these people that get like when I see blood. So I don't miss that. I personally think that bleeding should be illegal. I don't understand that. Um I don't I you know, cutting yourself with a razor blade is self-harm. And so if you're doing that just so you can bleed for your wrestling match, how's that any different? You know?
Well, I mean, some would say that it's trying to tell part of the story in that it's a grueling fight. It's a battle between the combatants, and sometimes when you have a fight, blood gets drawn.
No, I understand that, but you're literally getting a razor blade and cutting your forehead so you could bleed. I can't get my head around that.
Well, I guess hopefully you'll have a chance to interview Ric Flair at some point, and he can talk about it because he's pretty
Yeah,
much the master of it.
exactly. Like, how do you even do that? Like, how does it become normal that you have no fear to cut yourself anymore? Do you know what I mean? You would be quite hesitant, you know? And then does it ever become like just so easy, like you could just do it and it's like drinking a glass of water, it doesn't even matter no more.
Now, what did you make of Tony Khan's tweet on December 31st, New Year's Eve? I don't know if he was having a little bit of the bubbly when he tweeted this, but it was in response to a story of a performer's comments that had previously worked with AEW, Big Swole, and it was in Fightful Wrestling, Fightful.com.
Yeah.
And she was explaining how the lack of diversity contributed to her negative feelings about AEW. And Tony Khan responded in this way. He says, quote, the top two AEW execs are Brown, me, and Mega. And he says, Jade, Bowens, Caster, Dante, Nyla, Isaiah, and Mark Quinn all won on TV this month. The TBS title tournament has been very diverse. I let Swole's contract expire as I felt her wrestling wasn't good enough. AEW Rampage Street Fight tonight. When you read that or came across discussion of it, what was your reaction?
I think his reaction was very childish. I think as a corporate exec, right? If that's the role that you want and you want to be like the leader and you want to be an executive, you shouldn't even be addressing that. You know what I mean? Could you imagine Vincent Kennedy addressing any of the rumors? Every single day there is a rumor about the WWE, yeah? Do you think he ever comes and speaks on it? No. And there's because he has that authority. I'm the CEO and no one can speak to me. No one can reach me. Even his own employees are like, do you know he's the hardest? They don't even encounter him. Even the roster are like, because he's made himself like so inaccessible. He's the president of the company. He's not going to address anything. So Tony Khan is, I don't know what he's doing, but also I can understand from a marketing point of view, he does a lot of controversial comments. What those comments do is get into the news, which makes his company relevant, right? So because he doesn't have the 30 years of branding that the WWE has, right? And all the affiliations that I've had with the WWE, WWF, ECW, all of that brands. He doesn't have that. So he's got to get any sort of limelight that he can get to even compete with WWE. So I know like he's really active on social media and he says a lot of controversial things and people, you know, they react to it and that's what he wants. He wants people to react to it. He wants the media to take sound bites of what he's saying. He tried to call out Fox News recently, but they didn't react. And I'm sure he's not really happy about that because imagine if they reacted, that's one of the biggest networks in the world. He would get so much mileage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they no sold it, and he was left looking kind of silly. And actually,
Exactly.
comments didn't make any sense because he was talking about how in the demographic that AEW does much better than Fox News, but news channels target an entirely different demographic, a much wider demographic. I believe it's 18 to 54. So it's a larger age range than what wrestling targets. And
Exactly.
so
And
his
it's a
comments
wider
actually
reach.
made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I think he just wanted them to react and they didn't, you know. So he's gonna keep on doing these things. He understands like the game that you have to play in the media to get responses from these big already established people. So he's tried his best. He has tried and he's still trying to get Vince to officially acknowledge AEW as a company. Vince McMahon has never said anything about AEW on anywhere. Like he doesn't even acknowledge it. If Tony gets that Vince has actually acknowledged them, then then you will start to think, okay, AEW is maybe now Vince, but he's never, because Vince understands also he's the president. He can't come and address such a in his eyes like a small brand, right? But Tony's trying every single day to do everything it takes to provoke Vince to say something, and he hasn't, because Vince also knows Vince hasn't just started playing these games today. How many people have been trying to provoke Vince over the years? He's dealt with so much. He's a veteran in this space. He knows every trick under the sun. So Tony's trying really hard. And I have to say, like, I admire it because it does work to some degree. He is getting responses from some people, but not Vince. The day Vince acknowledges him, I don't think Vince will never over his dead body.
Well, I mean, it's a unique dynamic because the Khan family is wealthier than Vince, and they have an American football team. They have the soccer club in Europe. So they have a lot of the things that, when you think about it, Vince won it. I mean, Vince started his own American football league.
Yeah.
And so I think there is an interesting aspect at play because, as you talk about, I mean, Vince pretty much is the sole survivor of the wrestling territory era, and he came to be one of the most prominent CEOs in America. And yet, he has not been able to make headway in areas where the Khan family has been able to, with the Jacksonville Jaguars
Yeah.
and with the soccer team in Europe. So maybe there is a unspoken competition.
I don't, so you can have all the money in the world and not be classy and not be official and not have people respect you. It doesn't matter. I don't think the money is even a thing. I don't think anyone will touch Tony Khan's feet. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have authority like that. It doesn't matter how much money he has or his dad has, because no one says it's Tony Khan's money either, right? It's his dad's money. And when people say, "Oh, well, Vince inherited his dad's company too," well, when he inherited the WWE, the promotion of his father, it wasn't what it is now, right? It was a small promotion. It wasn't broadcasted to 100 and how many countries the world. You
It
know
was
what I'm saying? So you
regional,
can't,
yeah. It,
yeah,
it was it
you
was
can't
pretty
even
much in the
compare it.
northeast. Yeah, it was in the northeast of the United States. So it was like New York, Pennsylvania, that area, the tri-state area.
Exactly. When people say, "Oh, well, Vince inherited the promotion," he might have inherited what he took and built. This thing is big in Africa, right? Big in India, big in the Middle East. Come on, you see in Saudi Arabia, they even have their own thing going on over there. Like it's big everywhere. And who did that? It was him. You know what I mean? And so he has, listen, I can imagine when he walks into a room, people tremble because he has that like presence. Do you know what I mean? Like you can feel Vince McMahon is in the building. I don't think that Tony Khan has any authority. It doesn't matter how much money's in his bank account. He can't walk it. He hasn't got the respect that Vince McMahon has personally, because no one respects Tony as if he's a boss. He might be like your friend. He's cool, and you know what? He's got a different way of doing business as well, right? He's more of a friend than the employer, right? I don't know if that's a good way to handle business. Will that backfire on him when it comes to, business? You can't be a nice person, right? So Vince is like any other CEO. If you look at all these big corporate companies, they're all very similar. They make harsh decisions. Whatever people have to say about Vince, the company's still here. They're making more money than they ever have. So, I mean, really, are they? Is it something that the WWE is going to be done in 1 year? I really don't see that happening.
Now, having seen Vince on TV recently, he does look much older. Do you still feel he has that intimidating presence about him?
Yeah, 100%. It
Um,
doesn't matter, right? Because he's built that legacy. It doesn't matter how old he is. He's Vince McMahon. People tremble when he walks in the room. He has a legacy, right? And when he passes away, everyone's gonna know it's like Jim Ross is the voice of wrestling. Vince McMahon is the godfather. Like, even though he didn't invent it and he didn't start it, he took it to a whole different level that opened the doors for the likes of the other people. Because they would, do you think without Vince, there would be no Tony Khan? And so I bet, Tony Khan growing up was probably like idolizing Vince. Who knows if Tony Khan becomes like Vince in a couple years when he gets older and more in the business aspect. Let's see. I don't know. Can we compare them? I'm not really sure. Vince
I don't
McMahon
know.
is very.
Tony would have to start lifting weights, and he would have to learn how to format a wrestling show. So
Yeah,
he has a
exactly.
long way to go.
He does. It's 2 years. It's only 2 years, and for 2 years they've managed to achieve a lot. But the only reason also that they've been able to, instead in comparison to other companies, is that they have the financial backing to invest in these shows, where the other people are looking for investors. They don't have the money. They might have the best roster, but they don't have the money to put on a show that might cost a couple mil, right? I believe the AEW initial investment was 100 million. No one has that kind of money to just be like, hey, I'm gonna start my own wrestling, promotion. Daddy, can I have 100 million?
Now, in terms of the WWE moving forward, what do you anticipate will happen when Vince passes? Or, I mean, maybe he lives 30 more years. Who knows? Maybe he knows the secret formula. But when Vince passes, will the WWE really be the same? Will it have that same magic to it?
I think the direction for the WWE, personally, this is my predictions, right? Will be like Disney. As in, when with the High School Musical, the Zac Efrons, and they turned them into these larger than life characters, and they toured the world and they did the little dance shows, and so I think going forward, yeah, wrestling will change, and maybe AEW will be the actual wrestling promotion, right? Because Vince, he's getting old, and look, and I don't see him retiring, and unless he gets dementia or something that really affects his his ability to like think. But I don't think he, I could be wrong, but I don't think he believes in Stephanie to continue the legacy that he has built. So he would rather sell it to a company that he knows is going nowhere anytime soon, and they will just continue it till humanity ends, right? So companies like Disney, or I don't know, I've heard Who else is in the line to there's bidders. I can't even remember that. There's a few people allegedly bidding for the WWE. And maybe
Well,
that's like,
Comcast would be one. I mean, they own NBC, and they're tied with the Universal Studios theme parks. So
yeah.
there could be something there, and you never know. I mean, there's so much need for content that something like Apple TV, maybe Apple's interested, Amazon might be interested. There's a lot of potential buyers.
I could see Amazon. Amazon took the soccer league, right? So they out because they have the money. They outbid like BBC and Sky, which is Rupert Murdoch's like the Fox News.
Yep.
Because they have money and you know what Amazon might because Amazon is so wrestling is huge in India, right? And
Oh yeah.
if they got it on Amazon, it would mean that everyone in the world could get wrestling
Yeah.
because Amazon is in every single country, whereas like WWE Network is not easy to access, um, or the American channels. Unless you're in America, you ain't accessing that.
That's what a lot of people don't realize, and I mean, it speaks to your knowledge and intelligence, Sophia, of the business. I mean, Impact Wrestling was incredibly successful in India because they had the TV deal. When you have those deals, people can access the show. There's going to be interest. There's going to be engagement, and that actually leads me to something that I did want to ask you because AEW is on ITV or is tied with ITV. In relation to WWE, do you feel like in the UK AEW is gaining ground?
I think not yet. I think that the diehard wrestling fans know what AEW is, but I don't think not yet because I think that WWE is a brand. It's been around. It's like Nike. Everyone knows it. Do you know what I mean? Even if you don't watch it, you have heard of it at least once in your life. If you go outside and you ask an average person, like, do you know what AEW is? They'll be like, no. If you go outside and ask anyone, do you know what the WWE is? They'll be like, yes. Because, at least somebody's had an encounter at least once, watched a wrestling match at least once of the WWE of their life. So I don't think that AEW is there yet. Maybe it will take, it's only what 2 years that they've been out. Who knows? In a couple years what happens. But then also there's NXT UK, right? So there's and UFC is really big in UK, and they like boxing because you have Anthony Joshua who's like the Jesus, right? So wrestling isn't as huge. I think it seems bigger in America because America's a larger country.
Do you think if AEW were to do a live tour in the UK, they would be able to sell out the venues?
No, that's probably why they haven't done it. I don't think that they have that fandom yet. Maybe I can't think of Kenny Omega might be able to bring out tons of people. I know he does meet and greets. If they sign Jeff Hardy, which I think they're going to, and they do the Hardy Boys situation, yeah. But based on their talent right now, who do you think would be the biggest draw? Like if you were going to watch them, who who would be? Like in America, per state is who they like CM Punk's big in Chicago, because he's from there, so everyone loves him. But is there an AEW wrestler from England? I can't even think.
Isn't Anthony Ogogo from the UK?
Oh, but like he's not, okay, no shade, but he's not, a megastar. I don't think there is one, right?
Well, I mean, let's see. Maybe if they hire William Regal, he'll attract some
Do
people to the brand.
you think? Yeah, I mean, again, William Regal, only people over a certain age will know who he is. The younger generation, well, they want to see friggin' John Cena. They want to see Drew McIntyre. And they want to see Sasha Banks and Bianca, you know? Because see, the thing is, and this is where AW should really focus on, is building superstars, right? Because you have the likes of their talent branching out and doing other things. Sasha's doing the Mandalorian. Um, a lot of the WWE stars are doing random shows on Netflix, but it's branching out their brand and doing stuff on Twitch. Um, and they're always getting themselves out there, like doing red carpets for like Spider-Man, like main event stuff. And I think AW just focuses on wrestling, and that's what I guess that's their thing right now. But if they want to build superstars like John Cena, you really need to get out there. You need to get these people seen. So they need to start doing PR and building their roster as superstars. And that's what John Cena, The Rock, all those guys that they're superstars. They're not just wrestlers. And Vince kind of was the understood, like, if we want them to be as big, they can't just be wrestlers. And that's why, like, WWE even produces cartoon. I don't know if you've ever seen it. They've done like a couple cartoon movies recently. Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch were the voice of it. I can't even remember what it was, but I watched it recently. It wasn't even that bad.
I know that there's like a Scooby Doo a WWE movie, and I was like, wow.
I did watch that. I'm not gonna lie. No, this one was like monsters but wrestlers, and Becky was the voice, and so was Roman Reigns. I can't remember the name of it, but I watched it quite recently. I think it came out recently, to be honest.
Now, when we say building stars, I mean, last night at the time of this recording, Jade Cargill became the first TBS champion. And you tweeted out, and here's the quote, and I'll have to censor it because you included a little bit of a salty word. You say, quote, how will she have anything to improve for if you give her everything when she starts? This is mockery for women who are busting their butts. We'll put it that way. People say belts don't mean anything at WWE, but clearly they don't mean anything at AEW Dynamite too. So, I mean, there is an attempt with Jade Cargill to try and make a star, but it didn't seem like it resonated. There's the magic word, resonated with you. Why didn't it resonate with you?
I haven't, when you say that, I haven't seen Jay do anything outside of wrestling though. Have you? Or maybe I'm unaware of it.
Well, she was in the States known for playing basketball, but I mean, the thing is that, if you are trying to make someone a star, isn't a push where they consistently win and they ultimately win a title a logical way of going about doing things?
No, no, I don't think so. I don't think she needs, there's some people who don't need it. If you want to, like, she has an unbelievable look, right? She's really beautiful. She has an amazing body. She has, like, her body structure is very rare. Like, you know, women who are very muscly, they don't look feminine generally, right? I'm speaking hypothetically. They don't. She is
No,
all
you're
women,
speaking
and she
generally.
not. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, my English is really bad. Even though
No,
I speak
it's just,
English.
in general, a lot of people would make the stereotype that,
Female bodybuilders
yeah, female
are
bodybuilders
are
don't
built like they don't. You know what I mean? They don't look feminine at all whatsoever, and that's not no revelation. I'm sure everyone understands that. However, she is ripped to the bone, but she's very attractive. Do you know what I mean? And that is very rare. And I can tell, even like, I can't even, who else apart from China has been really, whether you, I mean, I think China's pretty, whether you think China's pretty is a whole different, but like to have that like femininity and also have the muscles. I can't think of another woman in the business apart from China
So
that
that's
has
the
that.
thing, is that Jade is very unique. So what was it about her winning the championship that bothered you?
I just feel like it's so. I think she looks amazing. I don't think she's a good wrestler yet, right? And I think that if you really want to build an animal, you got to make them work for it. She came in, you gave her everything based on what she looks like. But then it's like you also have to deliver, don't you? Eventually, you have to deliver. If people are like, oh, you're a wrestling superstar, and then they watch your wrestling matches and they're not that impressed, then you're not really. People will see behind that, oh, you're only just giving it to her because she looks like this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I have to say that there seems to be uh, a potential issue because, like you said, I mean, it's about the characters, it's about the story. So if you have this very unique character, like you say in Jade, and you
No, but
give
she
her,
tries. It's different because she actually tries to wrestle. Whereas the character-based wrestlers just talk and they might wave their arms in the air a few times. She actually tries to wrestle, and it's kind of painful to watch. It's different. Whereas you understand, okay, maybe you're gonna go in there and you wave your hands and you do a little thing, but it's different is that you can see she is actually trying, right? So it's almost like her training is broadcasted live on TV, right? She's through her training stage right now and it's being televised.
well, how is that different from someone like the Ultimate Warrior? I mean, you have an Ultimate Warrior action figure in your kitchen.
Well, Ultimate Warrior and I mean,
He and Ultimate Warrior
you
did
tell
try.
me,
Ultimate Warrior did try, and he had great matches with people like Macho Man Randy Savage and $1 Million Man
but
Ted
he was great
DiBiase.
on the mic. He was great on the mic. Is Jade good on the mic?
Well,
He was fantastic on the mic. Furthermore,
but
he was.
his promos didn't make any sense.
Yeah, but you know what? People think that, right? I mean, Ric Flair didn't make any sense, but they had that charisma, like that energy. Where he comes on, even if he's just going, ah, it just sounds really interesting. Whereas she doesn't have that. All she has is her look. And if it was based on that, then why is she why don't make her do things and then it reflects bad. Because then people will start saying, well, that was not nice. I didn't enjoy watching that. But she looks amazing.
Well, I think we'll have to let it play out because there are a lot of issues with AEW, and we've talked about them here. But I do appreciate the effort to try and make a homegrown star, and it's not just, well, we're gonna give a whole bunch of money to WWE people so they can come over and work for AEW. There is an attempt to make an original star. Whether or not it works, we'll see. But I think they should get a little bit of credit for trying.
Yeah, but they have other females though, right? They're not trying with those. Dante Martin's homegrown there, but he's fantastic. He's awesome and he's young, and I want to see, what he will do in like the next couple of years because he's so good.
Well,
And they have,
that's the thing. Sophia, have you seen Dante try and do a promo? He's actually worse than Jade.
but he can deliver in the ring. There's a difference. She can't do neither.
Well,
He can do that high flying stuff that everyone will be like, whoa, it's like looking at a little ricochet.
oh boy, that's another promo issue right there. A very talented performer, but uh, not
No
not
good on the mic,
not much
yeah.
in the promo aspect. So, what is the ultimate goal or dream? What would you like to achieve over the next several years? Am I going to be, turning on WWE and seeing you on a pre-show panel?
The next Caleb Braxton. I would first of all, I want to get my podcast to the top 100 on iTunes first, and then continue. I want to do a lot of interviews of very interesting people. I want to travel and do some on the ground like interviews, a bit like journalism. For people that are in the rural parts of the world that might be technology impaired that can't come on Twitch, right? That in wrestling, I love wrestling. And I would love to do something for WWE on the bump or whatever they have it planned in the future, or even like on the Twitch stuff. So yeah, I don't know.
Have you ever been to the States?
No, I have not.
Oh, that definitely has to happen.
Yeah.
And even it doesn't even have to be going to see wrestling events, just to see the country and
Yeah, for sure.
talking with interesting people for the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Well,
I would
folks,
like to go to Westboro Church. What's it called? Westboro Baptist Church.
of all the places, why there?
No, I want to interview them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll come on Twitch. Do you know who Luther Rue is? He's a British journalist slash, I don't know, podcaster, writer. He's done it all. That's what he does. He goes to all these rural places in America and interview people. He's British. Check out his shows. It's so interesting.
Well, I will check it out, and I encourage people to check out Vocal Minds with Sophia. The podcast is essentially a recording of these live interviews conducted on Twitch. So check out the podcast whenever you so choose on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Go to twitch.tv/Sophia. The interviews usually occur on Mondays, and give the show a chance. She's getting great guests. She's getting better guests than a lot of podcasts that have been around for years. And like she's mentioned, she's about 10 episodes in, and she's getting better guests than people who have been doing it for 10 years. So it's very impressive, and it speaks to her ability and skill and drive. So congratulations,
I will
Sophia.
say for anyone out there who's trying, right? You don't know until you try. So yes, I reach out to different people, but not everyone replies. You know what I mean? But just ask, even if it's like friggin' sliding in Joe Biden. Okay, hypothetically, sliding in Joe Biden's DMs on Instagram and saying, "Hey, do you want to come on my podcast?" Like, if you do that and you reach out to some people, will say, "Yeah." Don't Not everyone will reply to you, and not everyone will agree. But if you ask maybe 1,000 people, at least 10 will say yeah, you know? So yeah, reach out to people like writers, whatever you're interested in. Just ask, because if you don't ask, you won't get.
Definitely keep at it, stick with it, and believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sophia. Great A Nation. Give Sophia a shot with Vocal Minds, and we'll check in with you next time. Take care.
Thank you so much.